All right, let's get our Facebook groups in here, and then we'll start the show. Man, breaking news. We got the spinning wheels going. There we go. 1 and 2. All right, welcome in. It is time for Broncos for breakfast. Scott is in the background doing some work getting the article up and going. We tried to, reach out to Chad and Zach, but some people like to sleep, I guess, around these parts. Not here, not in this house, no sleep. Breaking news, the Denver Broncos sign superstar cornerback Patrick Surtain II to an all-time defensive backs contract. So details are emerging as the deal comes around, but we have news first reported by Adam Schefter that Surtain is signing a 4-year extension that is going to pay him $96 million contract with 77.5 guaranteed. The 96 is an all-time record for the defensive backs, and the 77.5 also a all-time record for defensive backs. So the exact details of when this contract is taking place and when it starts, I have not seen the specifications of that yet. The Broncos still had Surtain under 2 years of contractual control. This would have been his 4th year of his rookie contract. They also exercised his 5th-year option back in April. So in theory, they had 2 years of control left. In theory, they had 3 because with how talented Surtain is, he was always going to be one of the top 2 or 3 paid cornerbacks in football after, McDuffie, Gardner, also a contract's coming up at some point here. But in theory, Denver had 3 years of control left because they could use the franchise tag and keep him still paid pretty well, but not the massive guaranteed money and commitment down the line. So makes sense on both sides for Denver to get this done, to pay Surtain early before Gardner gets paid and before it gets dragged out. And Denver now has Surtain for a bit. Now, again, it's a 4-year extension. Does that mean that he's going to play on his 4th year of the contract and then it kicks in next year? Or does the contract kick in after 2025 where he plays out years 4 and 5 of his rookie contract and then it's 4 years? So remains to be seen. If you guys have the details in that, or if somebody sees it, and Scott can pull it up as well. We're just kind of waiting for all that to emerge. I can't research and form coherent sentences at the same time. So if you guys do see the specifications of when the contract kicks in, let me know. But Denver locks up arguably the best cornerback in football, just 24 years old, been a consummate pro, and very excited to see what he can do. And hopefully you guys could hear me. I had the mic next to me there instead of right in front of me because I was busy typing up an article there. So very excited to see everybody coming in here. Drop a thumbs up on the ways in. I don't know if anybody else is live talking about this right now. So let's hang out. Good morning. Coffee sip here for me real quick. Awesome. We got Dr. Van Nostrand coming in here, says go Broncos. David's in here, says good morning. Only thing I'm looking forward to is seeing if Bo Nix is our future and watching all the young talent. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the young team here. Quentin's in the house. Donald Willison, good to see you. Finally catch you live. Good to see you, Donald. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, we got Alan says, may as well jump over here and check this out. Well, good morning to you, Alan. I see you got some, looks like Georgia Bulldogs there. So you obviously were with us on the Falcons. We got Jeremy saying, good morning, last Broncos for breakfast before actual meaningful football. Finally have an owner. The owner really flexing their muscles here. General manager, coach, and a quarterback along with a fresh look. Here we go. Exciting season. No doubt here. And yeah, we got Jeremy breaking the news here. PS2 got the bag. Sees a long-term Bronco. String guys in the house. Great to see you. Oh, hope you're doing well. Dave Glassman with the Hearts. With Jay Roper saying it's a 3-year deal. That's a 4-year deal, but really it could be 6 years of control because it could be that Surtain's going to play out his 4th and 5th year deal with that new one kicking in 2026. So that would put him under contract for the Broncos until he reaches 30 years old, 29 years old. He's 24 right now, just turned 24 in April. So still very young, very much in the prime. But once cornerbacks reach 28, 29, you start to get a little scared there. But paying him, I mean, it's still the highest paid contract for a defensive back in NFL history. But it just seems like him and Gardner and McDuffie have been so far away from everybody else at cornerback, and the safety market is devalued so much in the last 2 years, it seems like. So I think it's still a relative bargain compared to what he is actually worth, in my opinion. But a really good player, and happy to see him in here. Chase comes in, says happy for PS2. One less thing for us to worry about during the season. Yeah, we'll talk about it more and more. Really excited to see the Broncos come in. Gatorade Gaming comes in and says congrats to PS2 on his contract. Go Broncos. Yeah, good morning to you, Gatorade. Hope you're doing well. We also got Joseph coming in saying might catch the first live show in a while. Been busy with a newborn. Kid number 3 extended stay in the hospital due to complications. Hope everybody's okay, Joseph. I had to deal with that as well. I don't have 3, but I know that's some of the scariest moments in my life for sure, dealing with complications. But new job as a police dispatcher. So all good now. That's great to hear, Joseph. Awesome to hear from you, and congrats to you and your family. Red John says Nick needs to hurry up. I got to go to work, and I have to see his beautiful nose before heading into the office. I don't think I've ever been complimented on my nose before. I've been told I've been called No Nose Nicholas. I've said if I didn't have a nose, my eyes would bump together, so close together. But other than that, I appreciate you, I guess, Red. We got Bucks coming in and says hi, Nick. Hi to you. Robot of Doom. Woo, they paid PS2. Awesome to see Eric Flynn coming in with the support. Yeah, guys. I mean, I know that Surtain's the moneymaker right now, but be like Eric Flynn. Support the show. It makes it worth it for me to be up at 5 a.m. on these Mondays and Wednesdays, despite, having to deal with the baby at night sometimes. So appreciate the support. Boogmeister says, let's go, Pat. Definitely deserve. Makes me more excited to be there week 2. We're excited to have you there week 2. We also got Quentin Caldwell's in the house. Our guy, Michael Ronquillo. Good morning, Nick on Broncos for breakfast. Bo time, Bo leave. God bless Bo Nix and Bo Broncos. Jermaine in the house. Good morning. Adam Strange in here. Greg Smith as well. Mark Reinert. Let's go. Let's go, Mark. We got JT saying, let's go. Glad we locked up PS2. And Jeremy Bales as well. Good. And yeah, we got Robot of Doom saying, right as I get to the gym, love to listen to MHH when I work out. Yeah, we definitely pump everybody up. Salvador in the house. Jason Kopp, morning all. Is this year's team better than last year's team? I think they have better direction. We'll see what the record says. I think last year Denver's wins were a little bit inflated by some outlier turnovers that probably are hard to repeat, but I definitely think they're heading in the right direction. It's just going to be hard. I mean, the biggest dead cap hit in the NFL, team that's missed a lot of top 100 draft picks. That 2023 class right now is not looking great. Granted, it's early, but no, I mean, not a lot of big time contributors from your 3 top 100 picks right now. We'll hold out hope for Mims and Moss, but we'll see. But yeah, they're definitely a team that seems to be heading in the right direction, even if the record is worse this season. So we'll see. Jesse, good morning. Good to see you. PS2 got paid. Nick, what do you believe the most intriguing matchup is against Seattle? For me, the most intriguing matchup against Seattle will be Bo Nix's ability to handle pressure and play within the pocket in the drop back game versus a Seattle defense that is going to be bringing pass rushers from every which direction while only rushing 4 or 5. You'll see a lot of simulated pressures and a very talented defensive front of the Seahawks. I think that right now, if I was a betting man, Byron Murphy would be my number 1 pick for defensive rookie of the year. Apparently he's looked really good out there. He's super young, talented player. He's going to get a lot of one-on-ones, I'd imagine, as well. So Byron Murphy is really going to be interesting. Hopefully Quinn Miners is up to it. I mean, the Broncos just paid him, but he's pretty darn good. They also got Draymond Jones, of course, as well. Leonard Williams, they traded for him, gave him a big contract. They got Derek Hall from Auburn, 2nd-round pick last season. He's kind of emerging as well. And then as well as Boye Mafe, who is a decent player. Draymond Jones, of course, as well. So I think that's a pretty talented defensive line for the Seahawks. And I think Broncos offensive line should be up to the task, especially for run blocking, but there's some questions in pass protection. And how is Bo Nix going to, hello, Scott, how is Bo Nix going to handle being under pressure? I mean, I think he's got experience. Obviously, he's played in raucous environments. I went to that Oregon versus Washington game last year, and it was loud there. I was happy for the Huskies to show up. I know sometimes people out on the West Coast don't really love their college football as much. It's not as raucous as in the South or the Midwest, but it was loud there. It's my big question will be, how does he handle the inevitable pressure and pressure looks that Macdonald and the Seahawks are going to draw up. And good to see you, Scott. Hopefully not too many mistakes in that article there.
Not too bad. Just some light editing that needed to be done. I take the long paragraphs and make them into 4. But that's about it. Nice job on that, Nick. The details, we're going through them here also, but we've got more in some of Nick's commentary on MHH.com, which is actually BroncosCountry.com as well, in case you didn't know that. So I'm sure you hit on the deal. I've speculated for a year on what it might be, and I think the Broncos actually got Surtain for a little less than I was expecting. This boils out to be a 3-year, $26 million per year deal with basically a salary cap year on the end of it, because his 4th year is actually less than his first 3. He ain't playing on a pay cut unless, something goes horribly wrong. So we'll see. It's a contract that can be restructured to free up more as you move down the line too. But we talked about it a lot over the weekend, Zach and I, on Sunday. There's just no reason not to get this done. And I think if they had waited, I had speculated he was going to be the first $100 million cornerback, first $30 million corner, and the Broncos came a little bit under that. I think they got decent value, to be perfectly honest with you. The highest paid defensive back in history, and I think the Broncos got decent value for it.
And I think a big reason for that is cornerback is a very volatile position. It's one where one injury can zap you pretty well. I mean, I'll never forget, granted, he was older at the time, but like how quickly Champ Bailey fell off. I mean, you see these elite cornerbacks, when they get an injury and they get a little older, they go from elite to hard to field pretty quickly. Now, granted, that's down the line for Surtain, in my opinion. Of course, things can change. The future's unknown. But you lock him up, 24 years old. And I do believe, Scott, we haven't seen the details yet. I've been trying to find it. But I think this contract, they keep using the word extension, not a new deal, but an extension. I think he's going to play out the rest of this year on this contract specifically, for sure, because it'd be hard to fit the cap hit on this season with the dead cap you have. But maybe even after the 5th year option that they already exercised. Now, we'll see if they tear that up and it starts next season's salary cap or not. But this is, in theory, 5 to 6 years of contractual control for Surtain. And why does Denver get it done again? Cornerbacks getting the money. It's a very fickle position, volatile position where your quick twitch, reactionary athleticism. I mean, cornerbacks are arguably the best athlete on the field, Scott. And you never know how that's going to translate long term. So Surtain gets the financial flexibility, the guaranteed money in his pockets going forward. Great for him. And Denver gets a little bit of a deal because, in theory, they still had 3 different years where they could have not paid him that life-changing, big guaranteed money. So Denver had leverage to not pay him just yet. Surtain has leverage, obviously, to sit out and everything as well, but we don't even get to that point. He's paid. He's going to be a long-term Bronco, and Denver locks up their best, most important face of the franchise currently, and only player who on this roster who could, and right as we look at it right now, sniff an all-pro caliber season.
Yeah, I mean, preseason, when you're looking at it that way, for sure. Again, I love the deal for all the right reasons for the Denver Broncos. We advocated for it, haven't done anything but advocate for it, and it got done. And it's nice to have money. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's nice to have money. You can lock up these guys. Not every franchise can. And they're looking to spin these guys off. And part of it is also, where are we going to be during the course of Pat Surtain's career? Because if we're going to be 6-11 for the next couple of years, what the hell do we need a corner for? It's like having a closer on a bad team. I don't need that guy. Let's trade this guy off, which is something that we had talked about a lot. If you really want to burn the thing down and rebuild, you trade Pat Surtain because you could probably get 2 or 3 first-round draft picks for him. No, we don't think that the rebuild is going to take that long. We feel like we hit on our quarterback. We've got a bunch of money next year. We got a full set of draft picks. We like where we are headed. And that's what we've talked about. Despite Nick and I doom and glooming it on Monday with 6-11 predictions, we still like the direction of the franchise. There's a certain direction to it, and there's resources to build that you haven't had in the last couple of seasons, and that's a positive thing.
And we keep hearing about this Denver Broncos locker room is extremely tight together. They love being around each other. Expectations outside of Denver aren't high, but it's a team that they're going to fight. They're going to be competitive this season, and it seems like a team that's excited to get on the field and get into the locker room and get into the film room. So again, building, it does seem like it's, not to use too much like college cliches or anything here, but like this is a program that was kind of torn down. You had a few bad recruiting classes, a bad personality for the NFL team, right? With Hackett and Russell Wilson. That's gone. It's still probably going to be a year or two down the line before this team really is building up towards competitiveness. You know, we talk about it over and over again, that 2025, 2026, because you have this 4 or 5 year runway now with Bo Nix's rookie contract and all that salary cap back, all your picks back. So even if this year, again, you're right, Scott, doom and glooming, people were kind of, we're on the lower end compared to what a lot of Broncos country in here was predicting the schedule. But this is a team that you don't make this kind of deal unless you think you're heading in a direction. And as you mentioned, Scott, I'll reiterate it. It's good to have wealthy owners here. You look across in the Midwest there, Skyline Chili City, Cincinnati, they're fighting. Ja'Marr Chase, he might not play week 1. And he's, valuable asset. Talk about that. Wide receiver is a little different than cornerback, but the Bengals owners are notoriously frugal and one of the poorest of the NFL franchise. And that's probably ramification, or you're seeing the ramifications of that with the Ja'Marr Chase stuff going on. So Denver, not a problem. You have big dead cap, but guess what? Down the line, they're paying hardly nobody anything. So they have a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I don't have $50 million in cash to spread this out across the salary cap in order to manipulate the cap a little bit. Michael Ronquillo, good morning, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Eric Flynn coming in with some stars. It's so funny. You saw me smirk, and I just did my best not to interrupt you because I normally forget. It's like talking about, howdy doody as coach and these bad personalities, and then you come in and bring Sean Payton. I'm like, you just described from my past, Alabama, the Alabama Crimson Tide was Bear Bryant years, and then even to Gene Stallings. Gene Stallings was awesome. And then you go to these howdy doody coaches and Mike DuBose and Mike Price, who you probably don't remember him, but he came out from Washington State. And then Shula was he's a solid coach. He's still coaching in the NFL, but he just was a little bit too big for him. And then here comes this world-class a-hole, Nick Saban, who's this phenomenal football coach who I absolutely love. And everything turns around. That sounds familiar, dude.
Yeah.
You go from Hackett. I've said it before he was hired. Sean Payton is not somebody who you want to, be friends with, so to speak, like Saban. I don't care. I want him coaching my team for sure. It just the whole description of it just reminded me of Alabama pre-Saban.
Yeah, again, this is probably still a transition season, but it's hard not to like the direction and the foundation that they are laying as a team. So we've said it all offseason. The results will be the results. Anything over 6-7 wins, I'll be ecstatic, but that's not the definitive factor of what's a successful season for the Broncos. And it seems exciting. So I want to answer Donald Willison's point here. He's asking, how can Denver afford this? I don't think that this contract is going to affect at all the Broncos salary cap this season. It sounds like it's an extension, not a new contract entirely. So they're not going to rip up whatever he was going to be against the books this season. I don't know that exact detail. I'm still waiting for the specifics if the contract kicks in 2025 or 2026, because Denver did exercise Surtain's 5th-year option back in April. So we'll wait and see on that detail. I have not seen that yet. But Denver locking up their player. And again, this is great, Scott. We talk about it all the time. Bad teams have a lot of money that they end up spending on free agency from players that other teams decided weren't good enough to retain. Denver is getting out ahead of it. They signed Miners a year before hitting free agency. They pay him well. He gets that the financial benefit, but if they keep hitting their current trajectory, a year or two from now, they will be potentially bargains, but at least not overspending, what you tend to get more so in the open market. So Denver taking care of this, using the leverage they have with the contractual control to give these guys guaranteed money beforehand. I'm happy for both players, but this is savvy, and this is something a team can do when you don't have a lot of bloated contracts down the line. Denver does not have a bunch. I think only 5 guys above $10 million earning next season. You still have a little bit of Russell Wilson dead cap next year, but not as big. And then
And
2026,
you have savings, Nick. You have
yeah,
savings from that because it was going to be a 50-something million cap hit from Russell Wilson. So his dead cap of 25 actually saved you $25 million instead of having Russell Wilson on the roster.
Exactly. So Denver has the ability to do this because the Russell Wilson contract, and also because the don't have a lot of first round picks as well. A couple of years of that, they have a lot of financial flexibility down the line. So instead of just hoarding all that money and being like, okay, let's sign the 10th best linebacker to the first best money in the NFL in free agency, let's bring back Quinn Miners. Let's bring back Surtain. So I think this is good. A good business model. Denver will still have obviously money. This isn't going to financially handicap them at all going forward, because rookie quarterback contract coming in here, assuming Bo Nix can be the guy. But really happy for Surtain, and this is a good deal. And the good vibes in the locker room have to just be great right now. This is a team that's young. They're excited. It seems like, as much as the media, a lot of people like to paint Sean Payton as a, what. Seems like the team is embracing him and the culture that he is building there right now.
Yeah, I've said before, he might be an a-hole, but he's our a-hole, and he, as long as you're fair, I had, just tough but fair is fine. You just don't want it to be, duplicitous, or, but tough but fair is fine. Players and coaches respond to that. Just like, where do I stand? And players love that. It's okay. I think of Remember the Titans. I may be a tough cuss, but I'm a tough cuss on every single one of them out there. Brandon Williams says, if Nix turns out to be the guy, I think we have some great cornerstones. Love that the Broncos are paying their own guys. So he agrees with you on taking care of your own, because it's awfully hard. You got to supplement in free agency. You can't build a team in free agency. It just doesn't work that way. We went through that on earlier this week, looking at the guys that are scheduled to be the top free agents. And you're just like, how many of these guys would even fetch a late first round pick in a trade right now? It's kind of a scary list. But yeah, again, if you talk about, man, we're really going to look back at this draft class and it's going to be a cornerstone for this franchise, a turning point for this franchise. It all boils down to one guy. If Nix hits, it's a turning point. If he doesn't, it ain't. So it boils down to him. And so far, the early returns on Nix have been good.
Yeah. We're excited to see what happens here. I mean, the rubber meets the road here as far as the evaluation of Nix. And again, I think that he is set up for success with Sean Payton and the scheme here. I think Payton's going to do a good job. I think that you're not going to see Payton start a rookie quarterback or talk about a rookie quarterback the way he has with Nix, unless they really hit it off and he believes in the work ethic and intelligence. They've invested heavily in the offensive line. I think the offensive line will be probably about the 10th to 15th best in the league this season, as long as they don't get really bit by the what bug. I'll knock on wood over here, because I don't really love the depth, especially because your sixth best offensive lineman is out for the year in Quinn Bailey, in my opinion, the sixth best. But that is something to watch. I just don't think that the weapons are all that great. Outside of Cortland Sutton, there's not a single one that I really have good faith in. I'm really pulling for Dulcich. I'm really pulling for Javonte Williams as well. But I mean, it's just, there's a lot of wishing going on.
We always say edge. It's like, what's the number one need on this team? Maybe edge. Going into next year might be offensive tackle. But right now, if I could have one player right now, by God, it might be a receiver. That could change his team around. If I could pick one player off any team, it might be Tyreek Hill. A guy like that. I mean, a lot of people might choose him, but I'm not choosing him for every team. I'm going to go with Myles Garrett. I'm going to go with Trenton Wirfs or Trent Williams, somewhere like that, maybe an offensive tackle. But one player for this team, it might be a receiver, because I'm with you. I don't necessarily trust the weapons on the. It might not matter what Bo Nix can do if people can't get separation up front and you're looking at 11 guys in the line of scrimmage all the time. Keith says the first two games of the year are crucial. Lose the first two games, and this young team might have a tough season to endure. The Bucks and the Jets are the next two games, and are those both on the road as well?
Yes,
if I remember right. Yeah, it's a tough sled. That's the thing. It's like, you could be better. we've talked about, and I hear people say, well, they won 8 last year. I can't picture them being worse. I can. There's a lot of reasons why they're going to be worse. Rookie quarterback 1. Are you better at linebacker? Are you better at safety? Are you better at wide receiver? The answer to all those questions could be no. And your schedule is still tough. So I could see this team playing better football and start improving through the year and still not win 8 games. Like I said, I like where the team is headed, even if I don't necessarily think they're playoff contenders right now.
Yeah, and just to kind of point at, add some context to this conversation as well, Timo Riske of PFF, he just did an article ranking the strength of schedules this season using average opponent's ELO rating as well as the average opponent's quarterback rating, which have been, based on his models, have been most predictive year to year as far as before the season starts. So interesting model there. Broncos rank 17th in the NFL, so right in the middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule, but a really weird dichotomy from early season to end of season. He writes that if the Broncos want to beat the allegations of being one of the worst teams in the league this year, they need to do it right out of the gate. No team has an easier schedule for the first 8 weeks of the season. However, only the Pittsburgh Steelers have a harder schedule from week 9 forward. So really just emphasizing Keith's point there about just how tough and how important it is for Denver to get out to a hot start quickly.
Yeah, and it ain't that easy. At Seattle, Pittsburgh's a little bit of a wild card at home. At Tampa, at New York, I mean, that ain't easy.
No.
3 of your first 4 games on the road in the NFL, there's nothing easy about that. And, and I agree with you, because if you start using last year's schedule and records as your strength of schedule, by God, teams change a lot. If Aaron Rodgers is playing, is that the same New York Jets team? No. Are you going to get the same Atlanta Falcons team that finished 7-10 last year? You don't think so. They look much improved. So, that you can throw that out the window as far as I'm concerned. Appreciate the stars, Keith. And thank you to Erica, Michael, and Brandon as well for the stars. And Troy coming in, breaking the ice for us over there on YouTube. He says, love it. Can you talk about how a lockdown corner changes the DL linebacker and other DB play? Sure, Nick. You're a big scheme guy. I'll let you take the first swing at this.
How can a lockdown? I mean, everything is synergy on the defensive side of the ball. So if you have a true lockdown cornerback, you can afford to play coverages and allocate resources differently than, and I don't know if Scott, maybe you're having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. It doesn't look like it's mine. You're freezing up a little bit there. But you can totally change how you are allocating resources. So when you have a number 1 cornerback, all the rage during the Vic Fangio peak was disguising coverages and buzzing a safety down late. And you can look like you're playing cover 2 and then have a safety right at the snap or right before the snap buzz down into a cover 1 or cover 3 look. Guess where that extra support's going to be? It's going to be opposite of your lockdown cornerback. You can afford to play a little bit more aggressive on the outside, using more players in the box in run fit or blitzing as well. So everything feeds into it a little bit. The issue with cornerback play is that other teams get to dictate where the ball goes. So it still does help you strategically, but it's not as much like a pass rusher or a wide receiver where they're dictating the matchups, whereas on cornerback or offensive line, the other team is dictating where the matchups are occurring. But for sure, it's can help you a lot. It's probably the 4th most valuable position in football as well. And it's a good cornerback class coming up. But I mean, every single year you see teams looking for good cover man cornerbacks. A lot of zone guys out there, ones that are big tacklers, some length and whatnot, but ones who can have the size, the technique, the fluidity that can play man coverage, that changes things drastically. Now, if you don't have the pass rush, it doesn't really matter if you have the best man cornerback in football, right? Because you give an NFL receiver 4 seconds, they're going to get open. So you still do have to have the pass rush in front of you there. But it can help you a lot when you have that number 1 cornerback. It just changes how you can allocate resources on the field.
And that's the exact phrase I was going to use, Troy, was just, I can make up for other areas. How does it change with it? Basically, it frees up my safeties. It might be the easiest way to do that, to say it. My safeties are there. That's why they're called safeties. They're there to protect, to read, and where's the ball going to go? That's where I need to be. Well, if I know the ball ain't going over here, I can cheat to this side and I can help my linebackers in coverage. I don't have to worry about, well, my linebackers don't cover tight ends very well. That's all right. I can cheat my safety down a little bit because I don't have to worry about my right side with Surtain over there guarding Devontae Adams or whatnot, just for an example. It's resource allocation. And if I know I feel good here, then I can cheat in other areas and overload other areas where I don't feel quite as strong, or exploit a weakness on another team as well. So it ends up being resource allocation, and it's a very nice piece to have when I know I can shut down one spot on the field and dictate you to go somewhere else, because then it's warfare.
Yeah.
I can create a choke point where I can funnel you into where I've got more bodies.
And we've kind of seen it with the Patriots, what they did with Bill Belichick, a really cover one heavy team. And what they would do is they'd have one cornerback play man coverage against the team's number 2, and they would essentially constantly bracket and double the opposing team's number 1, and having your number 2 cornerback with a safety helping proved to be more schematically effective than your number 1 cornerback on an island against a team's number 1 wide receivers. Because again, wide receivers know where the ball is going, and there's a lot of good wide receivers out there. So I don't think, and this is something that he kind of mentioned, the linebacker covering the tight end, like that's not really a thing so much in the NFL, right? Like there's not many linebackers who can actually cover tight ends in space because it's a two-way go, and they also have to worry about the run. Doesn't exist. It's the Family Guy. It's not Family Guy. Fairly Odd Parents. That's probably, you don't know what that is, Scott. But there's like a alternate reality. This is where my trophies go. If I had one, like that's your linebackers who can cover elite tight ends. Fred Warner, end list. But similarly to your cornerbacks following wide receiver ones, that's something as well. What's a schematic advantage? Well, they can just blanket your number 1 wide receiver. Teams are so good at using pre-snap motion and using wide receivers in a number of ways and alignments to free guys up that you don't really see that as much anymore. You see cornerbacks who are more comfortable on one side of the field, makes sense with the run fits, the technique's a little different either side as well. So can Surtain follow a team's number 1? Yes, but that's just not really how the NFL works these days, and that's fine.
But what's nice is he's smart enough and he's agile enough and he's strong enough that I can use him to cheat down. Like he's the type of corner who can keep his eye, in the slot too, and come off of coverage and make an interception. Now, a lot of the top corners just flat out don't make interceptions because guys aren't testing him. Mm-hmm. So, who's keeping us on our toes though? Brian Dunn coming in with a huge top rope, Jimmy Superfly Snuka elbow. He didn't do the elbow. He did the splash. Off the top rope, super chat. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for everything you're doing for us and keeping the lights on. It's a busy morning. This went right before we were thinking about going live. This was the news broke, and I didn't know what happened, but I could tell by Nick's face something went big. So this is good news. This is a good day for Broncos country. I actually said, Nick, because I expected this to be, this is good news. I expected them to hold this for after a loss and play the PR game. Oh, man, Denver, that's an old college trick. You lose, you announce 2 of your silent commitments on Monday. Oh, yeah, we just got commitments from this 4-star guy and this 5-star guy, and you forget about the loss. I expected a little trick like that, but it's hard to keep that quiet from, it's hard to keep $100 million quiet, Nick.
Yeah, and again, big congrats to Surtain locking down security and generational wealth, the highest paid corner defensive back in NFL history. That was inevitable. I know Sauce Gardner is probably licking his chops, and a year after that, Trent McDuffie as well. Those are probably the top 3 cornerbacks in football right now. But really happy for PS2. I'm hoping that Denver having a little bit more consistency on the offensive side of the ball and a much better on paper defensive line helps them a lot this season and generate more turnovers. That said, somebody else mentioned in the chat, and you weren't there last night, Scott. Happy anniversary again to you and your wife. But Riley Moss better be ready and have a short-term memory because he is going to get pelted with targets this season. And that's something that at Iowa, with a lot of off-coverage stuff, he made so many plays on the football. A lot of interceptions, a lot of pick sixes as well. I think he had 3 his junior season at Iowa, maybe even 4 pick sixes. But he better be ready. And I will say also, this is not just me, defending my Iowa Hawkeyes here, but when your sample size is going to be as large as it is with the targets I'm expecting to have, guess what? He's going to get beat some. There are going to be some catches that he gives up. But you have to think about the denominator as well. I think teams are going to be doing everything they can to isolate the likes of Moss and keep it away from Surtain, because Surtain is one of the best and he just got paid like it.
Yes, he is. William Hayes, he's asking me, since I made a reference to wrestling, do you remember the High Flyers? I probably remember the names. I don't remember that tag team. The farthest tag team I remember going back was the Freebirds with your namesake, Michael Hayes. He was the leader of that group. That's as far back as I remember on that. Kyle's back. Good to see you, Kyle. Got my Bo Nix shirt on my way for chest day. All right, we'll do good. Don't pull anything. Let's see here. This is something I didn't know, Jason, is their top edge rushers out for the game. That helps.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying the Broncos' top edge rushers out in Jonathan Cooper.
I was like, which one? Yeah, who? So yeah. Their top edge rushers out. I'd have to guess. Who is that?
It's
is it Benito, Browning, or Cooper?
Yeah, that's exactly. So for the Seahawks, that's Uchenna Nwosu. He's going to be out, but he's kind of a little bit of their Jack, where he's like a pass rush coverage hybrid player. And instead, they're a team that's going to rely much more on the talent of their interior defensive line. And Derek Hall, a better pass rusher than Nwosu out there entering year 2. Auburn player, 2nd rounder. And then their most talented edge rusher is Boye Mafe, who, if you remember at Scott, was pretty awesome at the Senior Bowl, a little bit older, but really toolsy as well. So like Nwosu might be their number 1 edge, but like I think he's the exact same tier as Hall and Mafe. So it's like if Denver was missing Cooper for a game, that stinks. But like you also have same caliber players, a little different, but like caliber in Benito, Ellis, Browning. You're not probably going. It's probably not going to sink you what you want to do defensively.
And I love this question from Greg Smith because it's one of the questions that plagues me. Nick, do you think we extend or move on from Garrett Bowles after this season? He is a free agent. He is one of the few guys who is still on a very team-friendly contract, meaning they could move on from him and save a ton of money. Sutton was the other one that was less. Justin Simmons was one of those guys. He's gone. I guess DJ Jones is still one of those guys too. But Garrett Bowles, I am surprised he is playing on this contract in the Denver Broncos right now. Will he be a Denver Bronco next year?
I have no idea. I'm going to be honest.
I am too.
Yeah, I have no clue. It's just tackles are so hard to find that even if Garrett Bowles is league average, he is going to get paid big money. Just having a known quantity at the tackle spot. I mean, Mike McGlinchey, right? I mean, he's paid unbelievably, and he's got deficiencies. He's not the pass protector that Bowles is. He plays right tackle, not left tackle. Has not been as healthy as Bowles. So if Bowles hits the market, he's going to get paid. Now,
I think that's where I am, Nick, is if he hits free agency, he will not be back. I mean, that's not like a hot take.
Yeah.
But, guys hit free agency and they come back all the time. Most of the time they probably don't. But I think if he plays through this season, because free agency doesn't start till March, so you've got several months where you can re-sign your own free agents, pending free agents, because they're not technically free agents yet, that if he doesn't get an extension in season, I don't think he'll be back next year.
And who knows?
Right now I'm leaning to just flat out no. No, I don't think he's a Denver Bronco in 2025.
I'm with you on that as well. It's also hard to say what the interpersonal dynamics are. I mean, what does Peyton think about him? What does Chris Cooper think about him? I mean, he's been here for multiple regimes now. He's got to be the longest tenured Bronco. I also find it always funny that, Courtland Sutton's name comes up constantly from the media in trade talks, but I'm under pretty good impression that Bowles is also in trade talks a good bit, just hasn't materialized.
It just seems harder to trade an offensive lineman in season. I mean, how often do you see? It's like we're in season now. We haven't played a game, but we're in season now. How often do you see a starting offensive lineman moved once the season starts? I mean, I don't pay microscopic attention to it, but my gut feeling is it doesn't happen real often.
I can't even think of it happening. I mean, I think there's a few times you see like a a guard or something move for like a 5th-round pick, somebody who's like a cap casualty that might have been cut anyways, on like an older guy on a team that's in transition, but you don't see that very often, Scott. But more so in the offseason. It's a topic of conversation, in March, February, those times, but hasn't happened yet. We'll see what happens with Bulls.
Real quick,
am
while
always
you're pausing, Jeremy says, we've asked that question 3 years now, which reminds me of the George Payton thing. I've given up on that one. I thought George Payton would have been gone a year ago, and then 6 months later. Now I just think he's good. He's sticking around.
We'll see. I mean, if the Broncos fall flat this season, things can change quickly, and we know Sean Payton's not getting kicked out for football stuff this season. So that's
I think he's starting his 3-year. Usually coaches get 3 years. Last year was a complete wash. I think now he gets 3.
Yeah, with Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. So we'll see about Bulls. One thing again, he's a player that tackle position tends to be pretty good through their mid-30s. So you should still have another contract in there of him being a solid starter. He has not had many injury issues, the type that, you're worried about popping up consistently. And do you really want to create a massive hole at the tackle position where, let's be honest, Scott, if Denver lets Bulls go, I hate going into the draft being like, we have to use a first-round pick. Yeah, it's a bad strategy to put yourself in a corner because you will be probably missing out on higher graded players because of a pressing need for the functionality of your offense and the protection of your quarterback. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Would they move Mike McGlinchey to left tackle and then it's not, nobody's going to love that, right? I'm not going to be happy about that, but that's something that could happen. So we'll see. I think Bulls is still very much on a trial run here. If he has a good season, Denver might re-up him before he hits free agency. If it's kind of, ho-hum, maybe they will let him walk and he will get paid by somebody regardless. There'll be a team out there looking for competent left tackle because, if you don't have that, it's hard.
It's funny. I always think that it's proven every time. Whenever there's big news, it's always like, okay, that was the news. Now what's next? Yeah. Okay, Pat's signed. Who's next? What's going to happen next? What about Bulls? What about Sutton? What about DJ Jones? We're already talking draft. So
yep. I think Sutton would be the next one. Because why I say that, Scott? I guess Denver had an okay offer. We'll see what Sean Payton kind of refuted it, but there was interest for Sutton. And if it was a 3rd-round pick and they chose to keep him instead, would you let that go? And he's on a pretty good bargain, all things considered. So we'll see what happens this year. But with the lack of weapons on Denver, ball's got to go somewhere, right? And I think Peyton's done pretty good at funneling an offense through one key pivot guy in the pass game. Has to be Sutton, right? If it's not Sutton, who the bleep is it going to be? I think Sutton more likely the next one.
Vele just, Josh Reynolds is even questionable for this weekend.
Yeah.
And I know we keep saying Marvin Mims, but he was AWOL in a preseason where all the starters played lots of minutes. So I just, again, right now, I would love to have the option of, again, you don't want to go into the draft saying, oh my God, we've got a gaping hole in one spot where we have to have a tackle. Because then that's how you end up reaching.
Yep, especially in the upcoming draft with the talent that looks available at defensive line, edge rusher, and cornerback. We'll see offensive tackle and wide receiver might emerge as well somewhat, but it is a counterpoint to last year where the first defensive player wasn't taken until 15 overall. This year, I expect over half of the first 15 picks to be defensive players.
It's cyclical. It's cyclical, but again, I think the offense, just look at them. Y'all have heard me say it a zillion times. Every rule change in the last 50 years has benefited the offense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what rule change I'd like to see that could benefit the offense? Let's go CFL style of field size. That'd help. The field size, it's like basketball. The rim's still 10 feet, and these dudes are banging their knee. This guy's out for a week because he banged his knee on the rim. The field size is almost too small for these guys these days.
Dangerous. I'd just like to see college football and NFL get the same hash marks, but that's small. That's me.
Would you want them wider, or would you like them both narrower? Or do you care?
I'd like them the same. Yeah, I'd like them both to be the NFL size. I just think that college football a lot of teams would cease to function because they need the space to operate their air raid stuff, and it would make some pretty terrible college football product. But I don't really care about, the FCS program so much. So whatever. Arlie Tucker, always great insight, guys. Thank you for being a solid Broncos conversation. You are a piece of home in the sunshine state of being out there in Florida. Well, God bless you, man. Scott's closer there than I am. I'm up here in the opposite of Florida. You're in lower right, I'm in upper left.
Yeah, you're about as far away from Nick as you can get, Arlie. Appreciate the stars. And Michael Ranquillo about ready to close us down. He says, great show today, Nick and Scott, on Broncos for breakfast. It's Bo time. Bo leave. God bless Bo Nix and the Bo Broncos. PS2 got paid. Yes, he did. That is one of the least surprising developments of the year. And I'm happy for Pat. I'm happy for the Denver Broncos. I'm happy for y'all.
Yeah, without a doubt. So we didn't really get a chance to talk too much Seahawks, Scott. I want your prediction on the score and your key matchup. I know we got to go.
We went on Monday. I was like, I don't want to be negative again. Yeah. I think this is a rebuilding year for the Denver Broncos, and the record is going to reflect it. I think going on the road to Seattle is a tough place to win, and the Broncos are 6-point underdogs for a reason. The over-under on this is 42. So Vegas is basically saying 24-18. So, 24-17 sounds about right to me. Seattle Seahawks.
I'm going to go 24.
The best thing I can do for y'all is pick somebody else. I promise you.
I'm going to go 24-23 Broncos on this one. Granted, my record last season was terrible on predicting the game, so don't go to the bank with me on this one. But I think Seattle's going to have some questions. We didn't even talk about their secondary as well. But like I mentioned, the key matchup for me is Nix's ability under pressure, because there is going to be pressure in this game, and it's going to be unlike anything he's seen as far as the way Mike Macdonald draws up pressure. You're going to be seeing only 4 guys come, but it's going to be 6 guys on the line of scrimmage, and they're going to buzz out into even man coverage sometimes. So are the Broncos is Sean Payton going to spread out the field a little bit, because it's much harder to know who's coming and going when you're playing those tight, condensed formations? I know Sean Payton wants to, batten down the hatches and play power football. But if you have a team who is really heavy in the simulated pressures, that makes it harder for your quarterback. So we'll see.
But then we get back to your weapons are completely unproven. It's like, I'm going to spread them out with guys that we don't know if they're any good in the NFL.
I think you can do that, Scott, but the key aspect to doing the spread stuff when you don't have the weapons is your quarterback has to be a weapon in the run game.
And I think you're going to have why is Vele going to be more of a factor than Mims? Because if I can get him out blocking, the stars of this game should be Cortland Sutton and your running backs, and anything else than that is, we'll see. That's what we were waiting to see. We can speculate all you want. The positive side of you can say, oh man, Devon Vele, he's been awesome. Troy Franklin, speed burner, Marvin Mims, he's just waiting to break out. The negative side of you could say these guys haven't done anything. What about, Greg Dulcich is how much is he going to play? How much of a weapon can he be? It's time. The rubber hit the road. Let's see it. And I'm still, this is overreaction season. I will still not overreact to what I see one way or the other in week 1.
Yep. Heck, I mean, not to be a total wet blanket, but give me 8 weeks, Scott. Patrick comes in and says, aloha, my coffee brothers. We'll catch up later. Yeah, big news today. We got to get on out of here. Broncos sign Patrick Surtain to a new contract before the season starts. Good vibes in the Broncos locker room for sure. Getting guys like Quinn Miners and Surtain locked up. That 2021 draft class looking pretty good. Maybe we still got questions of Browning and Javonte Williams, 2 big question mark guys this year, 2 breakout candidates from last night's show with Carl on building the Broncos. So we're excited to see what those guys can do, and happy to see Surtain get paid. Denver still had 2 years of contractual control, potentially through the franchise tag. So he signs a record-breaking deal, but even one that still seems like a good one for Denver, and good for Surtain as well, getting paid. Denver has a lot of flexibility going forward, even with his contract still, and it pays to have wealthy owners who want to invest in the team and the product on the field. So happy for Surtain. He deserves it. And one less big question mark that could potentially cloud the offseason as this team, again, everything is pointing up trajectory wise, big picture for the Broncos.
Yep. On that note, I think we're about to get out of here, Nick. If you want to handle some matters of business, get that prepped. And I want to say thanks to those who came in to support us with financially. Brandon, Michael, a couple of times, Eric Flynn, Keith with the stars. And then Arlie, feels like a newer name for us. I do recognize the name, though, Arlie. Appreciate you coming in. Troy coming in with the Denver Broncos orange super chat. And Brian, red hot, didn't have much to say, just supporting the show. Thank you, sir. Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle over on Twitter as well. If you haven't done so yet, we're on Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, like the show, and share on your social media platforms. I can't imagine there's too much content out there covering this as it broke live. So we're the first ones out there. Share it out there. If you have any questions about what we said, get at us on Twitter. And I will be live at the Seahawks game. So if anybody is down there or, wanting to meet up, I'm going to be heading down with a buddy. So we'll be down this week to see Bo Nix's first official start and second year of the Sean Payton era in Seattle, which hopefully is much better than the last time Denver opened up against Seattle.
And then we'll see you in Denver.
And then we'll see you in Denver the following week. Yep. So riding that 1-game winning streak right now. Let's see if we can keep it going here for my own personal viewing. But good to see you guys. I appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of your week. It's football week. We got football tomorrow. Chiefs, Ravens. I mean, God, what a great week 1 matchup. And everyone continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.